Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever been listening to someone talk? Maybe they're telling a story or arguing a point, and you just get this nagging feeling that what you're hearing isn't the whole story? I mean, from a super young age, we're basically trained to trust spoken words, right? We treat language like our absolute primary currency. But what if relying on words is actually the quickest way to get fooled? Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating framework based on the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. We're going to decode the psychological truths that actually dictate our everyday human behavior. Get ready because we're learning how to read people not by what they say, but by what they unconsciously reveal. Let's kick things off with this quote. Every profound spirit needs a mask. Now, look, when we hear the word mask or persona, our minds immediately jump to someone being fake, right? We think deception. But here's the thing. Nietzsche didn't mean this as an insult. Not at all. He meant it as a profound psychological warning. The mask is armor. It's literally how people survive a wildly complex world. So our job today isn't to get angry at the mask. It's simply to make sure we don't confuse the armor a person is wearing with their true vulnerable identity underneath. Okay, here's our map of the human psyche for today. We're going to cover 1. The illusion of words. 2. Layer 1, the mask. 3. Layer 2, the cracks. 4. Layer 3, the core. And finally, number 5, the compassionate mirror. Let's jump right in. Section 1, the illusion of words, and exactly why language deceives us. If you really want to read someone in an everyday social interaction, you have to accept this one fundamental truth. People rarely speak from a place of absolute objective reality. Instead, they speak from a place of survival, from ego, and honestly, a lot of the time, from fear. So when you hear a short, rehearsed reply, or you notice someone subtly dodging a topic, you have to realize those words are just a smokescreen. The real truth, it lies in the silence. Nietzsche believed that truth doesn't always come from talking. When someone pauses just a little too long or actively steers the conversation away from a specific subject, that silence is screaming at you. It is the active avoidance of vulnerability. Moving right along to Section 2, Layer 1, the mask and how we survive society. Like we said earlier, everyone wears a mask to survive. We curate a version of ourselves hoping it'll find acceptance. I mean, we all know someone who loudly proclaims their purity, right? The person who constantly corrects others or preaches at literally every opportunity. It's a huge display of excessive virtue. Well, Nietzsche called this the will to power disguised as morality. The loudest virtue signalers are very often hiding a deep sense of vanity or superiority. Think about it. True confidence and real goodness don't require a captive audience. When the outward display is that incredibly loud, it's almost always a mask. To truly read someone, you can't just skip ahead to the end. You've got to watch the progression. Step 1, you have to recognize the mask for exactly what it is, armor. Step 2, watch for the moments that armor inevitably cracks under pressure. And step 3, identify the core wound beneath it. It's a journey, really, from the surface all the way down to the soul. That brings us to Section 3, Layer 2, the cracks, and what happens when that persona breaks. Here's the catch with masks. No matter how perfectly crafted they aren't flawless. Driven by unconscious fear, they will inevitably slip under the weight of real life. So I want you to ask yourself, what happens when someone's mask is threatened? Think back to those everyday moments in conversation. You know, that sudden flash of discomfort, or the abrupt shift in a person's tone when a topic gets a little too close to reality, or maybe that super nervous laugh that completely mismatches the very serious words they're saying. Listen, those aren't accidents. Those are cracks. Those are the exact moments the real person is leaking out. And when that mask cracks, it very often takes the form of projection. So what is projection? It's when someone constantly critiques or mocks others, but actually what they're doing is attacking the exact trait they fear within themselves. For example, the guy who harshly mocks emotional vulnerability in other people, he might be absolutely terrified of his own feelings. When someone is constantly on the attack with criticism, it basically acts as a confession of where their own pain and insecurity lives. It's pretty wild when you start noticing it. You'll often see this overcompensation play out in absolute extremes. A show of chronic outward confidence or constant exaggeration, yeah, that's usually just the ego trying desperately to silence some deep-seated doubt. And what about that strict, obsessive outward control some people have? It almost always masks a terrifying inner chaos. It's like a rule of thumb. The stricter and harder the outer shell, the more fragile the inner self actually is. This brings us to the loudest mask of all, performance.
Think about that endless look at me energy, the perfectly curated online identities, the constant, exhausting need to be watched. We see it literally everywhere in today's digital age. But Nietzsche would tell us that this is never an actual show of power. Nope. When someone's life looks like a nonstop performance, it is actually a desperate whisper of need. They perform because they're terrified they won't be loved or seen if they just exist as they naturally are. It's essentially an empty core trying to fill itself up with noise. All right, let's peel back the final layer. Section 4, Layer 3, the core, and our deepest wounds. This is where we dive into the deep childhood programming that dictates our adult behavior. Our minds absolutely love to trick us with logical arguments. You might hear someone say, "Oh, I don't believe in love. It's just a fantasy." Right? It sounds like a rational, philosophical stance. But Nietzsche believed almost nobody speaks from pure logic. Underneath that rigid belief is an emotional wound. It's a shield built to protect against past pain and the terrifying fear of future rejection. Once you realize that these big arguments are often just shields, you stop reacting so defensively and you actually start understanding. Now, if you truly want to see a person's core character, here is the ultimate test. Watch how they treat someone who cannot fight back. Just watch how they handle weakness, because real strength is revealed to restraint. If you see someone constantly mocking vulnerability or harshly punishing the small mistakes of others, it just proves they are still at war with themselves. They probably weren't allowed to make mistakes growing up, so they project that intense strictness outward onto everyone else. We see this dynamic show up all the time in how we view success, too. People often tear down those who are successful or confident or just freely living their lives. But the hidden truth there? It's usually envy. When someone intensely attacks a free spirit, it's a really painful reminder of the parts of themselves they've abandoned. It's their souls secretly whispering, "Man, I want that too, but I don't believe I'm allowed to have it." At the end of the day, tearing someone down with criticism is just a whole lot easier than admitting admiration. So the absolutely crucial point here is that people don't just randomly change as they grow up, they reenact the past. The unheard child, they often become the adult who never listens. The heavily punished child becomes cold and emotionally detached just to stay safe. And the child who constantly had to earn love becomes the adult who exhaustingly performs for it. It's like the saying goes, behavior is simply biography. Behind almost every frustrating adult behavior you encounter, there is a child who is still just waiting to feel safe. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 5, the compassionate mirror and understanding ourselves and others. You know, once you start seeing this matrix of human behavior, the masks, the cracks, the core, it's super easy to feel like you suddenly have a superpower. But listen, reading people is not about gaining leverage over them. It is about offering grace. Nietzsche didn't want to expose people so you could control them. He wanted to expose the truth so you could stop being fooled and instead start genuinely connecting. By seeing the fear hiding behind the office bully or the deep guilt hiding behind your arrogant neighbor, we can stop personalizing their toxic actions. We become unshakable, and we start extending real compassion to people who are just trying to survive in the armor they were given. I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. As you'll see, the more clearly we learn to read others, the more clearly we are forced to look at ourselves. We all wear masks, right? We all have cracks. So, which of your everyday patterns, your need to control, your urge to criticize, your desire to perform, is actually a confession of your own hidden pain? Take some time to reflect on that today, because true understanding always starts from within. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep looking beneath the surface.